Audience. Teachers play such a crucial role in shaping the minds of the next generation. They spend a minimum of 1,260 hours influencing and impacting students' lives, yet are one of the most undervalued jobs in the country. Teachers deserve an increase in salary. Being someone who once dreamed of going into the field of education, and as a mother of three, I've seen the lack of support, funding, and appreciation for teachers. First, I'll tell you about how much personal funding goes into the classroom. Then I'll tell you about the endless hours teachers devote outside the classroom. And last, I'll tell you about the low wages and how they are having a negative impact on the future teachers and the next generation to come. Teachers are forced to work with tight budgets and use personal money for their classroom essentials. One thing that people do not take into consideration is the amount of money teachers have to put into their classroom that's from their own pockets. Educators are left with no choice but to pay for their own supplies. According to a recent survey by the National Center of Education Statistics, 94% of teachers spend their own money to stock on classrooms with necessary supplies and resources. For teachers in low-income districts, the cost can even run higher. Some teachers, it may just be paying for pencils and paper, which some are key necessities. There are some with students living in poverty and even homeless, supplying them with clothing and food. Now that you've had a brief insight on how much personal funding teachers are having to contribute towards the needs of their students, I will tell you about how much personal time outside the classroom they are also having to devote. A teacher's day never really ends. I wanted to be a teacher, but I realized all of the work that goes into the classroom, outside the classroom, and thought it wasn't for me. I have kids, 2 that play sports, and 1 that's a baby, and it would be hard to get everyone to everything and make time apart for grading papers. Because income isn't as strong as many teachers see, they have to get second jobs to support families, which would take away even more time from being home with their kids. Teachers arrive early to prepare for one day, and some stay late for tutoring. My daughter goes to tutoring 3 days a week. Many must grade papers and prepare lesson plans on the weekends. Some argue that teachers only work 9 months a year, but many must end their summer breaks early to prepare for classrooms, go to trainings, and prepare for meet and greets before school even starts. According to the National Educators Association, educators have said it includes 2 to 4 weeks for continuing education, 3 weeks for curriculum planning, and another 4 weeks for training, classroom setup, and preparation. We can argue that the lack of pay and the extra time working affects teachers. Now I'm going to tell you the repercussions it has on our future generation. Teachers provide the building blocks of our child's lives, and in some cases, teachers spend more time with students than parents do. They teach kids the basics on how to interact with society, like manners, social skills, and problem-solving skills they will use for their lifetime. Without the basics like speaking, reading, and writing, our society wouldn't function. Parents teach very little about that, unlike teachers, and as kids get older, it gets harder, so you want someone who is passionate and willing to help. Lack of pay is affecting the quality of teachers. Many are quitting due to the increases in workload and the decrease in pay. In another article based on teachers' protests to increase funding, it said that low pay is also one of the chief drivers of a recent teacher protest across the country. Desire to teach is decreasing due to it not being a higher paying job. Many are passionate and would be great at teaching and would make a difference in the quality of education, but do not choose that career path. Teaching should be a higher priority and valued. I first told you about teachers having to supply themselves with their essentials. Second, I told you about the countless hours educators spend in and out of the classrooms. And last, I spoke with you about the effects teaching has on the current and future educators, as well as the students. The system of education is impaired and isn't giving enough to the ones shaping the minds of our future. Without successful teachers, children will struggle to thrive. Consider this before you underrate teachers. They have the biggest impact on our kids. Here's